Low Ink, March 2026. I'm still Sasu, here with Jokera, and we're looking at Time Flies versus UNM Splatoon Cherry. Excited to get into this round too.
Yeah, I checked both teams. I think both of them ended up going 0-3 in their previous round, so both of them are currently looking at a game down out of I believe it's 6 rounds of Swiss is the way that Low Ink works. Yeah, and some interesting teams here as well. Time Flies, I know, has played in some low level, usually like Div 7 below turf stuff, and then UNM Cherry is a CCA team.
Oh wow. I think wait. Do we have everything all set up? Have both of the teams been proper? Okay. Yeah, I was like, that's Joe Ryan there. I was like, Specnia on June. Like, something's not checking out. I think they accidentally, sometimes, listen, this is why I'm never the person who is hosting. I don't care if I'm wired. I don't want to do it because I'm gonna end up messing something up. So just going to make sure that they have the proper people on the right team so we get back into it.
Yeah, we can, I guess, look ahead at some of the maps here. As we have Clamblitz, Barnacle, and Dime, Splat Zones, Umami Ruins, and if I'm seeing this right, that's Tower Control Mahi Mahi Resort.
Honestly, you see sometimes lesser played map modes in Low Ink. Here's certainly there it is. Tower Control Mako Mart, a little bit more conventional. Listen, everybody knows that I have a Clash in my back pocket, and I love Tower Mahi, but I get it. Everybody else doesn't. It's a leader feeder ground. So it will be Tower Mako Mart instead, which is also a good Clash map. So win-win, I suppose.
That's a shame. We could have had TC Mahi, but okay, whatever. We can have TC Mako. I think a lot of these maps, I think, definitely encourage different ways of actually playing, especially I feel TC Mako definitely encouraging you to have to push ahead a little further to make sure that you actually can secure all the checkpoints. I think it's going to be interesting to see if we see any comp switches throughout the game, throughout the match by both teams to sort of cover what each map is going to need, or if they're just going to stick with the same comp, stick with what works.
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see that as well. And like you mentioned, both of these teams going like, what was it, 3-0 in their prior sets. Someone's going to have to lose. And clearly both of these teams are strong enough that they can just their entire sets. So getting into this, I think everyone finally on the proper teams. I'll take a look at the comps. Always going to shout out a Forge when I see. And then I don't know if I'd call it a conventional comp coming out of UNM Splatoon Cherry. I feel like, especially the VAC 96, has been really in use these days.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it being used, especially on, I think it's in a lot of area cups. You generally start seeing it, but getting into the game here, we have Time Flies immediately trying to take some space, already taking control of mid, as UNM Cherry is looking to try and currently push them out, try and take some space. Both teams are currently just in mid, fighting for control, trying to push up a little further to get closer to that basket.
Yeah, but one thing I really love about Barnacle and Dime Clams in particular, you have that jump out from Joke, which was really strong there, is that even though it can be really with Lockout, you have Neru just weaving, ducking and weaving through there and getting that ball in. Honestly, this has been so high tension, high octane, like excitement right off the top. I can't even get a thought in. Everybody's just running all over just everywhere. I don't know. A lot's happening.
Yeah, we see UNM Cherry taking back mid, using that opportunity that Time Flies had to push back in order to try and take some space here in mid. We see a Vac coming out. Unfortunately, he's going to go down to the whale, and Reef is able to take out the pen as the Ink Brush Nouveau not able to find anything, as Time Flies is already looking for another push here.
Yes, and they get it. That is, what, something like 3 consecutive power clams just tossed in there, and Miss Frizzle just checking that mini, I believe, and I think that they have the clam economy to finish off that entire push in practically no time at all. Time Flies is correct, because what a speedy game.
Yeah, both teams. Time Flies just they had so much more control over space, even when they had the push back in. They already had the specials, already had the clam economy to actually begin taking space, and they were not delayed at all in trying to make that second push. They had already gathered all the clams that had spawned on the other side of the map, and immediately just pushed in, looking to end the game as fast as possible.
Yeah, great call out there, Jokera, because I feel like literally what I was going to point out is often when you think of, let's say, Barnacle and Dime on zone, right? Wow, that was like such great mechanics, that display that we saw there. I was so surprised I had to just drop what I was saying, but a lot of the time it's about locking out, but what you'll see is some teams move forward for the lockout, but they don't have the clam economy for a proper push. But Time Flies really accounted for that, and you see here 3 consecutive power clams hit that basket. Miss Frizzle takes that top right, and they're just able to hold while they get all of those in. So really good management and teamwork seeing out of Time Flies.
Yeah, but now we are moving on to the next match on Splat Zone's Umami Ruins. I definitely, to say the maps are kind of similar would not be, it's not untrue, but also both maps, I feel, especially in terms of how they play on the different modes, require a lot more different. They require a different set of skills, especially with Umami Ruins, where you're more so looking to try and take that snipe, try and playing around mid, taking the middle block to just get as much space as possible.
We saw the aggression coming out of Time Flies. I wouldn't be so surprised if they do indeed take the enemy dome, move up through that choke point, and go for the utter lockout like they did on Barnacle and Dime. But taking a look at these loadouts, we have a switch from the Forge onto the Frozen Pro, so they're going to have missiles. I think that's really helpful for 2-zone affairs, seeing as though, if someone's standing in zone, it's a little extra paint that you can kind of have to cap over that, since we're going to be seeing a lot of neutralized zones due to there being 2 of them.
Yes, and UNM and Cherry looking to immediately take some space, having a massive comp switch, tried changing out nearly every single weapon, bringing out Paintbrush, V-Dapple, Blob, and Splat-Doolies. The Splat-Doolies just fighting for their life in the other court. As Time Flies is still trying to get some space here. So many members on their side are just going down, looking to try and take the left zone. As UNM Cherry is looking like they are having a massively different strategy going into this next game.
This is so interesting what we're seeing here. Aside from the fact that practically everything has changed, I'm curious if that's perhaps that's their zones sort of thing that they do. Perhaps that's specifically something that they do for Umami. But what it felt like I was seeing is that several members of UNM Splatoon Cherry were going down, but yet they were keeping the zone somehow. There'd be only 2 of them. And you see here, there's only 2 of them, and still Time Flies does not have the zone. It's extremely interesting, especially because Time Flies has that dynamo that we've been seeing more play out of, and this entire scuffle, this entire time, Time, Time Flies hasn't been able to get it, and just with those two people, UNM Cherry, they have a spectacular hold going on here.
Our Time Flies finally able to put a penalty on UNM Cherry. Just like you were saying, that's two members trying to hold the zone. Time Flies is finally looking like they're able to get a push here, using so many specials to push the paintbrush and all the other members on Team Cherry all the way back. UNM Cherry currently finally pushing back in. Perhaps Time Flies used their specials a little too soon.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree because I think for the first time ever, we're not really seeing a fight in mid. It seems like there's just a steady hold going on for UNM Cherry, but the missiles are going to come out. Like I mentioned before, going to put a little bit of paint on that zone, and I think along with these strikes, finally, once again, Time Flies is able to stop the bleeding and put even more penalty there, but a crab is out. You have that rain, lots of specials. Cherry, that's what gets them the zone ultimately.
Yeah, Time Flies has just not been able to have any solid hold on the zone throughout most of this game. Perhaps they're going to finally find that hold now, as all but three members on UNM, or all but one member on UNM Cherry goes down. As Time Flies is out of their penalty now, looking to try and take some space. But due to the nature of how this map is, you just need to lock out one zone, and it instantly stops any push that you're able to make.
Yes, but it feels like, at least I was thinking, finally Time Flies has a really solid hold, but just like nothing. I think that might have been Yellow, or rather one of the Dapples, getting a double, which just puts them in a precarious situation. The Dynamo is on top mid, not where you want the Dynamo to be if you're UNM Cherry, and I think that... that is the flow aura there for the blah blobber. I think perhaps this unconventional comp, I feel like these weapons that can be a little bit annoying in solo, that being the paintbrush and the blah blobber sometimes, are giving Time Flies a lot of issues. It just feels as though they can't have all of their members up without someone just going down to a stray. So finally, once again, they do have this zone, but we'll see if they're able to keep it. They've been having trouble so far.
Yeah. It feels like so many weapons on this comp for UNM Cherry allow them to either paint the zone from the other side of mid, or just move extremely fast. Paintbrush not included in that, unfortunately, but they're just able to lock out UNM Cherry so fast and so easily. We're 10 seconds now left in the game, and UNM Cherry still has a lot of points that they need to try and make up if they actually want to try and win this game.
What? I'm watching them have trouble painting this zone. Perhaps that's just a lot of paint, but you see, this is a huge opportunity. I think the Dynamo finally gets this pick, and they get the zone back. That's going to be a delayed wipe, but a jump in from the V Dualies is going to neutralize that zone. Everyone's going to have to turn around and get that zone back, and they don't do it. They let the Dualies just paint over that, and that ties up our set at a 1-1. Jokera, how unfortunate.
That was how unfortunate indeed, but I gotta see that jump from the Julie, getting a last minute jump to the paintbrush to get behind the zone as the Dynamo. I'm assuming just they had, because of stealth jump, they just could not see the jump that was coming in, and allowing them to paint the zone behind them, forcing a lot of the members of Time Flies to have to look back in order to paint the zone, distracting them enough so that UNM Cherry could take back the other half of the zone and stop overtime.
Wow. Unfortunate is really the only word I have for that, because I'm I'm like, no, how does this happen? Very hopefully everybody's on comms, right? So you think maybe the Dynamo calls it out, people turn around to say, hey, like, we have to paint over this. I I think what ended up happening here is time flies, or rather UNM Cherry, their comp was disorienting enough that it just made time flies have to flail a little bit. And I'm extremely curious as to what they're going to decide to go for tower control Mako Mart, seeing as though I feel like time flies was never quite able to get their footing the entire time.
Yeah, I personally, for me, I'm hoping to see either a Comet's Octobrush or a different version of Paintbrush, especially with. That's just me, though. I feel both of those weapons work very well on this map, from my experience.
Yeah, you have that Kraken, of course, like we talk about the GG Booyah, um, and the GG strikes and those sort of AoEs, but I think Kraken can also sometimes be a GG special. Just pop it, clear that tower, everyone's off essentially. And I think that the AoE as well coming out of a brush can be so lethal on a place like Mako Mart that really relies on verticality, but we have a mirror match in terms of the Forge. I love to see that, and a double backline coming out of Time Flies. Very interesting stuff.
I've not seen Boa Hydra in a long time, so this is going to be, I think, an interesting game, especially with having that bubble for breaking checkpoints and at least having that backline in order to just keep the members of UNM Cherry as far back as possible, trying to outrange that blob. Currently, both teams not gotten on the tower at all. Currently, Time Flies is looking to take some space here, getting pretty much a wipeout on UNM Cherry and immediately starting to push up forward.
Yes, and I think they have good spacing. You see that flank there, gonna get checked here by Miss Frizzle very expeditiously, and Juice just holding down that tower ultimately. Once again, another flank being checked, and I think that Time Flies, perhaps they've gotten their bearing on what it is that they need to do, because they are just eliminating all of the members of UNM Cherry, and since they've gotten on this tower, it feels like they haven't even stopped.
Yeah, already gotten down to 13, a really solid lead. At the for the start of the game, it's a really solid lead. Time Flies already looking to shut down so many members of UNM Cherry, not able to push back in spite of getting the stop on that tower as Time Flies is pushing once again.
It feels as though Time Flies, their answer to what happened last game is feeling like perhaps they were being outranged, being able to check that perhaps was difficult for them. So now bringing a Hydra to the party, one with Bubble, like you said, to break through those checkpoints has really been helping them. You see two members going to go down to that Booyah Bomb. I think that Brush going to be checked, and a stylish wipeout on this third game at the very end, giving this game like almost a 100-0 push there for Time Flies.
Yeah, I definitely think the double backline comp at least helped in that regard, being able to shut down a lot of the frontline weapons on the side of UNM Cherry that they don't exactly appreciate having to fight double backline. I do think the double backline has many problems in trying to run it, but when you're running it when you're running it and you don't exactly have to worry too much about paint, it allows you to concentrate a lot more on kill power or support with the weapons that were being chosen. And I definitely think it definitely allowed Time Flies to sort of lock out UNM Cherry from being able to push in, because so many frontline weapons had to just keep pushing in against weapons that just outranged them entirely.
Yeah, and you see that play there, having that Ultra Stamp come in from the side and essentially pincer two members of UNM Cherry was really helpful for them. I actually, not gonna lie, I was a little bit surprised by the Hydra pick. I think that Splatling can be a little bit weak here due to how vertical it is, but really, that Hydra didn't have to do much swimming up stacks. They were on tower the entire time, pressuring the enemy plat while the rest of their teammates just really cleaned up those kills while people were dealing with the Hydra and the Rapid. So definitely it feels like this entire set was a game of comps, and ultimately Time Flies came out on top.
Yeah. It's not really a whole lot else to add there. Time Flies is currently going to be 1-1 now. UNM Cherry 0-2, giving them a lot more leeway in being able to make it to a higher bracket in day 2. And looking at it, most of our sets have actually wrapped up. We've got 3 sets that are currently on their third game